Hello everyone, welcome to this YouTube channel. So today we are going to start Polity lecture series, and in this lecture series we are going to learn complete polity through question and answer, or you can say we will prepare polity from the mains perspective. Okay, from question and answer we are going to learn the complete chapters of polity. So in this lecture, today's lecture, we are going to start with polity chapters like amendment, basic structure doctrine, and parliamentary system. So first question we are going to discuss is the process of constitutional amendment strikes a good balance between flexibility and rigidity. Okay, so what is question trying to ask? क्वेश्चन हमसे क्या पूछ रहा है कि जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट प्रोसेस है हमारे कंट्री में, इंडिया में, वो स्ट्राइक करता है गुड बैलेंस बिटवीन फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी एंड रिजिडिटी. फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी एंड रिजिडिटी कहने का क्या मतलब हो गया कि जो अमेंडमेंट प्रोसेस है, ओके, जैसे हम लोग कुछ अमेंडमेंट देखते हैं पार्लियामेंट में, लाइक सपोज वी वांट टू admit some new state in our country. Okay, so we see that through simple majority, okay, or simple process, it is done. Okay, so what this shows, ये क्या दर्शाता है कि हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में अमेंडमेंट करना बहुत ही आसान है. इट मीन्स इट इज फ्लेक्सिबल, राइट? But on the other hand, we also see if Parliament try to amend some fundamental rights, okay, so we see that some fundamental rights to implement some directive principle. So we see that it requires a special majority. Okay, उसे स्पेशल मेजोरिटी के थ्रू पास. स्पेशल मेजोरिटी कहने का क्या मतलब हो गया कि मेजोरिटी ऑफ टोटल membership of each house and majority of 2/3 member present and voting. Okay, member present and voting. तो अगर हम लोग कुछ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट करने जा रहे हैं, ओके, लाइक सम चेंजेस इन फंडामेंटल राइट्स टू इम्प्लीमेंट सम डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स, ओके, सो वी सी दैट पार्लियामेंट नीड टू पास दैट बिल थ्रू अ स्पेशल मेजोरिटी. ओके, सो दिस व्हाट डज दिस शो, ये क्या दर्शाता है? सो दिस शो दैट our constitution is not so much flexible, it is rigid also. Okay, and third we can see that we have also judicial review system, right? So if there are some amendment which disturb the basic structure of our constitution, then Supreme Court can also struck down those amendment. जैसे अगर हम लोग एग्जाम्पल की बात करें इसमें, तो पार्लियामेंट इन 2014 enacted 99th Amendment Act, through which Parliament tried to introduce NJAC, okay, National Judicial Appointment Commission. So Supreme Court struck down that law by invoking basic structure doctrine. So from this we can see that our constitutional amendment is not so much flexible also. Okay, so it is in between, right? So let's first see what are the procedure of constitutional amendment in India. Okay, so what are the प्रोसीजर? सो हम लोग प्रोसीजर देखते हैं कि सबसे पहले प्रोसीजर है क्या, राइट? सो अगर हम लोग कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अमेंडमेंट कैसे पार्लियामेंट में इंट्रोड्यूस होता है, ओके, द प्रोसीजर ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट, तो सबसे पहले क्या होगा? सो इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ बिल. ओके, इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ बिल कहने का क्या मतलब हो गया कि जो भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट पार्लियामेंट करना चाह रही है, सो इट विल इंट्रोड्यूस फर्स्ट अ बिल in either house of a parliament. Through a bill, it can introduce in either house of parliament. After introduction of bill, it will, okay, then the role of minister and private member. Okay, so what is the role of minister and private member in constitutional amendment procedure. Okay, so the bill can be introduced either by minister or either by private member also. So suppose there is question in prelims that constitutional amendment act can only be introduced through minister and not private member. So that statement will be wrong. Okay, so the bill can be introduced through minister also, through private member also, and it does not require, okay, it does not require prior approval of president. ओके, तो ये चीज हमें याद रखनी है कि अगर हम लोग कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट ला रहे हैं पार्लियामेंट में, सो इट डज नॉट रिक्वायर प्रायर अप्रूवल ऑफ प्रेसिडेंट, राइट. So this is the role of minister and private member, that bill can be introduced either by minister or either by private member and does not require prior approval of president. Okay, now we will see passing of bill. So how bill can be passed? So article 368, right? Article 368 of our constitution provide three process or three way to amend constitution. So article 368 क्या करता है? It provide three way to amend constitution. और three way क्या है? What are the three way? Okay, so let's see that. Okay, तो three way क्या है? So let's see. First, through simple majority we can amend. Okay, what does simple majority means? That member present and voting in house, जो भी member वहां present और vote कर रहे हैं, that is what it is called simple majority. और through simple majority हम लोग क्या amend कर सकते हैं? Like suppose there is introduction of bill, for example we can suppose there is a bill for admission और एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ऑफ न्यू स्टेट. तो अगर ऐसा कोई बिल आ रहा है पार्लियामेंट में, तो that require only simple majority, that does not require special majority, right? And the second way is what? Special majority. So special majority मैंने आपको बताया that total members, majority of total membership of each house, okay, majority of total membership of each house and 2/3 member present and voting in the house. okay, और स्पेशल मेजोरिटी के थ्रू हम लोग क्या कौन से बिल को हम लोग पास करेंगे? सो सपोज अ बिल फॉर changes in fundamental right. So suppose there is bill introduced in parliament regarding some changes in the fundamental rights, then it will require a special majority to pass the bill. And the third way is amendment by special majority. Amendment by special majority and consent of state. Okay, so suppose, okay, there are some bill which require consent of state also. So first what will happen? So first that bill need to be passed through special majority in the parliament in the center में क्या होगा? उस बिल को सबसे पहले स्पेशल मेजोरिटी के थ्रू पास किया जाएगा. उसके बाद हाफ ऑफ स्टेट से रेटिफिकेशन के लिए जाएगा, कंसेंट लिया जाएगा टू पास. और स्टेट में क्या होगा? स्टेट में ये सिंपल मेजोरिटी से पास होगा. इस बात का ध्यान रखना कि अगर मान लो देयर इज अ बिल, okay, there is bill which require consent of state also. So parliament में क्या होगा कि वो तो एक स्पेशल मेजोरिटी से पास होगा, बट स्टेट में क्या होगा? इट विल पास थ्रू सिंपल मेजोरिटी. इट डज नॉट रिक्वायर स्पेशल मेजोरिटी इन स्टेट. जैसे अगर हम लोग एग्जांपल की बात करें, गुड्स एंड सर्विस टैक्स काउंसिल है. okay, so if it requires some changes or some amendment in that tax council, so it require permission of state also. So in that purpose what it will happen? First the house need to pass through special majority in the center, and then in state it will just pass through a simple majority. It does not require special majority in the state. So through this three way we can amend the constitution, right? Now the fourth is what? passing of bill in house. So this is what, this is the, you can say the way of passing bill. Okay, अब passing of bill in house, तो हाउस में कैसे बिल पास होगा? So the amendment bill, the constitution amendment bill will introduce separately in the house. Okay, bill क्या होगा? Bill separately introduce होगा हाउस में, bill will separately introduce in house, और दोनों ही हाउस सेपरेटली पास करेंगे उस बिल को. और इन केस ऑफ डेडलॉक, ओके, इन केस ऑफ डेडलॉक देयर इज नो प्रोविजन ऑफ ज्वाइंट सिटिंग. ओके, तो अगर हम लोग सपोज करो कोई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट बिल ला रहे हैं, और अगर हम लोग कोई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बिल ला रहे हैं और सपोज लोकसभा पास इट, ओके, एंड राज्यसभा डज नॉट पास इट, तो ऐसा कोई प्रोविजन नहीं है कि हम दोनों हाउस को साथ बैठा के उस बिल को पास करवाएंगे, राइट? देयर इज नो प्रोविजन फॉर ज्वाइंट सिटिंग. एंड देन आफ्टर दिस assent of president, a bill suppose is passed in both the houses, now it will require assent of president. Okay, and in this constitutional bill, in this, if constitutional bill is introduced to president, then president does not have provision to withhold the assent. Okay, मतलब president के पास ऐसा कोई भी provision नहीं है जिससे वो constitutional bill को withhold कर सकेगा या फिर return कर सकेगा reconsideration के लिए. Okay, so president cannot withhold assent, okay, and also cannot return bill for reconsideration. Okay, तो this thing we need to keep in mind कि अगर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बिल प्रेसिडेंट के पास जाता है तो प्रेसिडेंट उस बिल को विथहोल्ड नहीं कर सकता और ना ही रिटर्न कर सकता है रिकंसिडरेशन के लिए. एंड आफ्टर द एसेंट ऑफ प्रेसिडेंट, बिल क्या हो जाएगा? बिल विल बिकम एक्ट. ओके, तो सपोज अगर सपोज लेट्स टेक एग्जांपल, इफ देयर इज अ बिल, ओके, इफ देयर इज अ बिल which is regarding reservation of women in parliament. ओके, तो ये बिल सबसे पहले क्या होगा? दिस विल इंट्रोड्यूस आइदर बाय मिनिस्टर, या तो किसी मिनिस्टर के थ्रू इंट्रोड्यूस होगा, और बाय प्राइवेट मेंबर, right? Then what will happen? It will require simple majority. Okay, so either this bill will pass through simple majority, or through special majority, right? And then, और ये कहां पे पास होगा? And where this bill will pass? This bill will pass in the separate, in, sorry, just a second. So where this bill will pass? This bill will pass, just a second, separate in both houses. अब यहां से क्या होगा? ओके, अब देखो, बिल है रिजर्वेशन ऑफ वुमेन इन पार्लियामेंट, तो आइदर बाय मिनिस्टर और बाय प्राइवेट मेंबर इंट्रोड्यूस होगा. ओके, और ये बिल पास कैसे करेगा? आइदर थ्रू सिंपल मेजोरिटी और स्पेशल मेजोरिटी. और ये बिल इंट्रोड्यूस कहां होगा? ओके, सॉरी, इंट्रोड्यूस होगा या तो लोकसभा में या फिर राज्यसभा में, आइदर बाय मिनिस्टर और बाय प्राइवेट मेंबर in either house of parliament, right? अब बिल क्या हो गया है, इंट्रोड्यूस हो चुका है। अब या तो ये बिल पास करेगा सिंपल मेजोरिटी से या स्पेशल मेजोरिटी से। इन केस सपोज करो किसी एक हाउस में, सपोज लोकसभा ने क्या किया, पास कर दिया बिल को, और राज्यसभा ने नहीं पास किया है, तो व्हाट विल हैपन, द बिल लैप्स कर जाएगा। और इन केस कि इसने भी पास कर दिया और राज्यसभा ने भी पास कर दिया, राइट, देन it will go for the assent of president, and president after giving assent this bill will become act. ओके, तो 106th अमेंडमेंट बिल जो था वो क्या हो जाएगा, 106th अमेंडमेंट एक्ट हो जाएगा। ओके, एंड थ्रू दैट देयर विल बी रिजर्वेशन फॉर वुमेन इन पार्लियामेंट। ओके, so let's conclude this. So what was the question? So the question was that the process of constitutional amendment in India strikes a good balance between flexibility and rigidity. So how we can show? So we can through this three way we can show to the examiner that Indian constitution has three provisions to pass the bill: through simple majority, through special majority, and we have also a feature that we call a judicial review, right? So through all these three we can say that the process of constitutional amendment in India is neither completely flexible, फ्लेक्सिबल भी नहीं है कि हम किसी भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के प्रोविजंस के आर्टिकल्स को अमेंड कर दे रहे हैं। अगर फंडामेंटल राइट्स की बात है तो इट विल रिक्वायर स्पेशल राइट। अगर उसमें भी क्या है कि अगर मान लो स्पेशल मेजोरिटी के थ्रू भी अगर पास कर दिया गया उस बिल को, एंड इफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट फाइंड दैट that amendment in disturbing the basic structure of the constitution, तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट क्या करेगी, स्ट्रक डाउन कर देगी। तो एक तरीके से क्या हो जाए कि रिजिडिटी आ गया है, राइट। सो वी कैन से दैट the constitutional amendment process in India is neither completely flexible nor completely rigid, right? It is in between of flexibility and rigidity, which strikes a good balance, right? और फेमस ऑस्ट्रेलियन constitutional expert, okay, constitutional scholar थे केसी, it also says that Indian constitution strikes a good balance between flexibility and rigidity, right? तो पासिंग ऑफ बिल आर्टिकल 368 जो है पार्ट 20 में वो तीन तरीका बताता है कैसे हम लोग कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल को अमेंड कर सकते हैं, राइट। आई होप दिस क्वेश्चन इज क्लियर। सो दिस इज रिगार्डिंग द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट। अब हम लोग अगर सेकेंड क्वेश्चन देखें, so there is one famous amendment, right? So let's second question. So the second question is like, why is 42nd Amendment Act also known as mini constitution? And in this we have to discuss major changes brought by it, okay, and its impact on political processes, right? So in this question what we need to discuss is that we know there was a 42nd Amendment Act which was brought during Indira Gandhi government during the emergency period of 1975 to 1977. So the question is asking ki why we call 42nd Amendment Act also as a mini constitution. First part is this, and then we have to discuss the major changes brought by 42nd Amendment Act, okay, and what was the impact of those changes on political process. So there is two part of the question, okay. So when was this 42nd Amendment Act was brought? So 42nd Amendment was brought by Indira Gandhi government, right, during emergency पीरियड। और इमरजेंसी पीरियड कब से कब तक, 1975 से 77 के बीच में, राइट। और इस 42nd अमेंडमेंट एक्ट के थ्रू क्या हुआ था कि गवर्नमेंट हैज अल्टर सो मेनी की एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। ओके, गवर्नमेंट ने क्या किया था थ्रू 42nd अमेंडमेंट एक्ट, इट हैज अल्टर so many key aspects of constitution, राइट। तो अब हम लोग अगर बात करें कि क्या चेंजेस लाया गया था, ओके, एंड वन थिंग ऑल्सो कि देयर वर सो मेनी चेंजेस इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, सो दैट्स व्हाई इट इज ऑल्सो कॉल्ड मिनी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। क्योंकि 42nd अमेंडमेंट एक्ट के थ्रू नॉर्मली क्या होता है कि अगर कोई भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट बिल को इंट्रोड्यूस किया जाता है तो दैट डज नॉट हैव सो मच चेंजेस। कुछ 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 चेंजेस है, जैसे 106 अमेंडमेंट एक्ट में वुमेन रिजर्वेशन बिल था, 99 अमेंडमेंट एक्ट में वी हैव एनजेएसी, इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ एनजेएसी, राइट। सो काइंड ऑफ दिस, जब भी कोई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बिल आता है तो उसमें हम लोग few changes लाते हैं, but in this 42nd amendment there was a large number of changes that has been brought by the Indira Gandhi government, and that's why we call this 42nd amendment act as a mini constitution. अब क्या क्या changes थे, what were the changes? अगर हम लोग चेंजेस की बात करें 42nd अमेंडमेंट एक्ट के थ्रू, तो चेंजेस क्या थे? तो सबसे पहला था कि लार्ज नंबर ऑफ चेंज किया गया था इसमें, लार्ज नंबर ऑफ चेंजेस। अब लार्ज नंबर ऑफ चेंजेस क्या किया गया था? तो मॉडिफिकेशन टू 53 आर्टिकल्स। ओके, सबसे पहले तो 53 आर्टिकल्स में कुछ कुछ मॉडिफिकेशन लाया गया था। 40 न्यू आर्टिकल इंट्रोड्यूस किए गए थे, 40 न्यू आर्टिकल्स, एंड इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ टू पार्ट्स, दो पार्ट्स को भी ऐड किया गया था। एक तो था पार्ट 4 फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज, पार्ट 4A, एंड पार्ट 14A. Okay, so these two new parts were added in the constitution, modified the 53 old articles, and also introduced 14 new articles in the constitution. So that was a massive number of changes, large number of changes. Second was what? So there were changes in preamble. Okay, so in preamble, this 42nd amendment act added what? Socialist word, secular word, and integrity word. So these three words were added in preamble. Okay, what was the third changes? Okay, so introduction of fundamental duty. So before this amendment there was no concept of fundamental duty, so there was introduction of fundamental duty. Okay, and what it was added in part 4A of constitution. Okay, and 10 new fundamental duties were introduced in the constitution, right? What was the fourth change? The fourth change was supremacy of DPSC. So what happened? So government through article 31C, okay, government through article 31C gives supremacy, okay, given primacy to all the DPSP over फंडामेंटल राइट्स। तो आर्टिकल 31C के थ्रू क्या हो गया था? तो गिवन प्राइमेसी, इनिशियली क्या था कि 31C के थ्रू दो फंडामेंटल दो डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स पे क्या था कि उसे यू कैन से इट हैज गिवन प्राइमेसी टू ओनली टू ऑफ द डीपीएसपी ओवर फंडामेंटल राइट। बट अब क्या हो गया था कि 31C के थ्रू सारे डीपीएसपी को प्राइमेसी दिया गया था, गिवन प्राइमेसी टू ऑल डीपीएसपी over fundamental rights, right? And then it has also curtailed judicial review. Okay, so curtailment of judicial review. So through this amendment, so government has also curtailed the power of Supreme Court and High Court to review laws. So through this amendment, government has curtailed power of Supreme Court and High Court to review law, right? What is the six changes that this amendment has brought? So it has strengthened, okay, the central government. Okay, it strengthened central government. And how it strengthened? So what this amendment has done, so it has transferred 5 subjects. And what were those 5 subjects? So let me tell you. So the 5 subjects were education, then forest, protection of wild animals and birds, and then weights and measures. So these were the 5 subjects: education, forest, protection of wild animals and what, weights and matters, measures. Okay, and last, administ administration of justice. Okay, from state to from state list to concurrent list. So in पांचों सब्जेक्ट को क्या किया गया था? Through this amendment, it has been transferred from state list to concurrent list. Okay, और 5 सब्जेक्ट क्या थे? तो education, forest, protection of wild animals and bird, weights and measures, and administration of justice. Okay, so these were the 5 subjects. What were the 5 subjects? Education, forest, education, forest, protection of wild animals and birds, weights and measures, and administration of justice from state list to concurrent list. Okay, so this was the 6 changes that has been brought by the government. The 7th change was that it has extended the tenure. Okay, or extended the term. Okay, so what government has done? So like the tenure of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha were the 5 years initially, but after this amendment, the term was increased from 5 to 6 years. Okay, so the tenure of Lok Sabha and State Legislative Assembly were extended from 5 to 6 years. And what were the 8th change? So the 8th change was introduction of tribunals. So through this Amendment Act, okay, so the government has introduced Part 14A, okay, which provided for the establishment of administrative tribunal. Okay, so Part 14A provided for establishment of administrative tribunal, that is Article 323A, and tribunal for other matters, that is Article 323B. So this were the 8 changes that has been brought by this 42nd Amendment Act. What were the changes? First, modification to 53 articles. Okay, introduction of 14 new articles, and introduction and added 2 new parts, that is Part 4A and Part 14A. Then there were changes in preamble which introduced socialist, secular, and integrity word added in the preamble. And then introduction of fundamental duty, Part 4A, added 10 new fundamental duties. Then supremacy of DPSP, curtailment of judicial review, strengthened central government by transferring 5 subjects from state list to concurrent list, extended the term of Lok Sabha and State Assembly from 5 to 6 years, and then introduction of tribunals. So these were the changes that has been brought by the 42nd Amendment Act. So you can see clearly that this is a massive number of changes ever brought in the constitution before this 42nd Amendment Act, and that's why it is also called as mini constitution. Okay, so some scholars also refer 42nd Amendment Act as a mini scholar. So we have seen what are the changes. Now we will discuss what is the impact on political process. Okay, So let's see what were the impact. तो अगर हम लोग इम्पैक्ट की बात करें तो देखो इम्पैक्ट हम लोग कैसे पता करेंगे। सबसे पहले देखो क्या है कि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को क्या किया गया, स्ट्रेंथन कर दिया गया। तो इसका मतलब क्या हो गया कि पावर को सेंट्रलाइज करने की कोशिश की गई। तो इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा, सेंट्रलाइजेशन ऑफ पावर इन यूनियन गवर्नमेंट। क्योंकि हमने देखा क्या किया गया, 5 सब्जेक्ट को ट्रांसफर कर दिया गया स्टेट लिस्ट से कंकरेंट लिस्ट के लिए, ठीक है। तो वी कैन से, और उसके बाद क्या किया गया कि प्रेसिडेंट के रूल को भी एक्सटेंड कर दिया गया। अब प्रेसिडेंट और कंकरेंट लिस्ट ये सब कहां पे आता है, तो सेंट्रल पे आता है, राइट। सो वी कैन से दैट देयर वाज इंटेंट ऑफ सेंट्रलाइजिंग द पावर ऑफ यूनियन गवर्नमेंट। सेकेंड हम लोग अगर देखें तो क्या किया गया था कि कर्टेलमेंट ऑफ जुडिशियल रिव्यू। जुडिशियल रिव्यू मतलब सुप्रीम कोर्ट और हाई कोर्ट के पावर को क्या कर दिया गया था, कर्टेल मतलब कम कर दिया गया था। तो दिस एक्ट ट्राई टू वीकेन जुडिशरी ऑल्सो, weakening of judiciary. This is a impact also we can say, okay. And judicial review, then we can see that government has tried to extend the term from 5 to 6 years. So you can also say that it has tried to curtail, okay, curtailment of democratic rights and institution, right. सो डेमोक्रेटिक राइट और इंस्टीट्यूशन के पावर को क्या किया गया था, कम करने की कोशिश की गई थी। कैसे, तो सबसे पहले क्या किया गया कि टर्म को एक्सटेंड कर दिया गया 5 to 6 इयर्स लेजिस्लेटिव टर्म को। और दूसरा क्या किया गया था कि बिफोर दिस मिनिस्टर एडवाइस वाज नॉट बाइंडिंग ऑन प्रेसिडेंट, ओके, बट आफ्टर दिस अमेंडमेंट मिनिस्टर एडवाइस वाज बाइंडिंग ऑन प्रेसिडेंट, right. So this is another impact. Then there was ideological shift. Ideological shift क्या था, तो before this preamble doesn't have word secular socialist and integrity, but after this that word were added, so we can also say that that there was an ideological shift. And then fifth we can say that there was impact on federalism also, okay. कैसे, तो again same, the transfer of 5 subject from state list to concurrent list, and also extent of precedent rule, okay. So this impact on federalism, okay. So this all were the impact. Now if we will conclude this, okay, so what question has asked ki why 42nd Amendment Act is also known as mini constitution. So first we will, what we have to see that 42nd Amendment Act, okay, when it was introduced, so it was introduced by Indira Gandhi government during the emergency period, okay. And this was 42nd from between 1975, and when was emergency period, so it was between 1975 to 1977, and this act was brought in 1976, okay. Now why it is called as a mini constitution, because through this constitutional amendment there was a large number of changes that has been brought since ever in the constitution. What were those changes? So they have tried to modify 50, they have modified the 53 articles, introduced 14 new fundamental rights, introduction of 2 parts, added 2 parts in the constitution, that is part 4a fundamental duty and part 14a, that is tribunals, establishment of administrative tribunals and other tribunals, right. Then there was changes in a preamble, added socialist secular integrity word in the preamble, then curtailed the power of Supreme Court and High Court, then extended the tenure of Lok Sabha and state assemblies, extended the president rules in the state, okay, introduction of fundamental duty, and then it through Article 31 sorry, through Article 31C, it has given primacy to all directive principle over fundamental rights, that is supremacy of DPSPs, right. And then it has tried to through this act it has tried to strengthen the central government by transferring 5 subjects. And what were those 5 subjects? So education, forest, protection of wild animals and birds, weights and measures, and administration of justice from state list to concurrent list. So this all were the changes that has been brought through 42nd Amendment Act, and this is a large number of changes. That's why we call 42nd Amendment. Some scholars call it as a mini constitution of India. And what was the impact of these changes? तो सबसे पहले कि सेंट्रलाइजेशन ऑफ पावर ऑफ यूनियन गवर्नमेंट, क्यों? क्योंकि एक तो ट्रांसफर किया जा रहा है सब्जेक्ट फ्रॉम स्टेट लिस्ट टू कंकरेंट लिस्ट, and then you can say uh, extension of precedent rules in state, so that is impact. Second हम लोग कह सकते हैं कि try curtailing the power of judicial system. Okay, तो weakening of judiciary हम लोग कह सकते हैं. curtailment of democratic rights and institution, जो कि हमने देखा कि टेन्योर को एक्सटेंड कर दिया गया स्टेट लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली और लोकसभा का, और फिर क्या किया गया कि एडवाइस ऑफ मिनिस्टर बाइंडिंग कर दिया गया प्रेसिडेंट को. देयर वाज आइडियोलॉजिकल शिफ्ट. ओके, we can see clearly in the preamble addition of those three words, and then impact on federalism. So these were the impact. So in conclude, we can say that there was large number of changes that has been introduced to 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Okay, but ये जितने भी changes थे, okay, after removal of Indira Gandhi government, the Morarji Desai government, the Janata Party government, through 43rd and 44th Amendment Act, they have subsequently reversed or dilute those changes, right? So this is what 42nd Amendment Act. Okay, so two questions we have discussed, right? Now the third question that we are going to discuss is regarding, okay, so these two questions were regarding amendment, okay, constitutional amendment. So we have what we have learned in those two questions. So let's try to see. Okay, so this topic was regarding constitutional amendment. That is a syllabus in our polity UPSC syllabus. So in this two, from these two questions, what we have see, we have learned what is constitutional amendment. Okay, constitutional amendment होता क्या है, then procedure, हमने देखा किस क्या प्रोसीजर है अमेंडमेंट का. then we have seen also types of amendment, special majority, simple majority, right? We have seen what is types of amendment, and we have also see one of the major amendment that has been brought ever in the constitutional history. It is 42nd Amendment Act. In 42nd Amendment Act, what we have seen, what were the changes, okay, and impact of those changes. So majority of the portion of this topic we have discussed through these two questions, right? So in the next lecture we are going to again start this lecture series, but the next topic will be basic structure doctrine. Okay, so thank you everyone. If you like this concept of teaching something new for mains, then kindly like this channel, share with your friend, and subscribe. Thank you. Have a nice day.